Right, we're going to begin outside of Ghana. We are keeping our eye on Wall Street, which has just one trading session left before U.S. voters begin the process of picking their next president and potentially determining the direction of the economy for the next 4 years. Now, the traders are buzzing about the possibilities, constantly checking the latest polls, and there are so many of them, and moves in election betting markets to figure out who's ahead. Well, Republican Donald Trump or Democrat Kamala Harris, and what that means for their positions. Joining me with some insight and analysis is lead data analyst with Johnny's, Isaac Kofi. We're just speaking before the segment about how close this race is. But what could a Trump or Harris win mean for the global
Well, look,
stock
Daryl,
market?
I think that this will be the closest U.S. election that we may have ever seen, possibly in our fourth republic as Ghana. But if you look at it on the stock market level, there's a different story that is emerging today, and possibly tomorrow we'll see a different story. And the story is that currently you can now bet on the American election, which previously was illegal. Now you can bet on the American election just like the way you can bet on cocoa and then oil. American elections are now considered as futures, and you can place a yes or no bet or different odds and win something. But let's go to the stock market where you asked a very important question. What could a win, for, whether by Harris or by Trump, what will it mean to the stock market?
Biden is out of the race.
Depending on who wins, the American election definitely will go a different direction. If you're looking at Trump, for instance, he's more focused on tariffs, where the Democrats are not really that focused on tariffs. He says that if you really want to enter America, then the Americans possibly would have to benefit. So the stock market is actually, Wall Street is actually watching, and they have looked at the data in terms of the different polls that are coming in, and they are using that to inform their decision. But trust me, Wall Street has enough, sufficient, secondary data to even make decisions, not just based on polls, but definitely the polls will also serve as some sort of fundamentals in terms of the decisions they make with respect to where they put their equities in the next days.
You talk about Trump, do we know what her economic policies are?
A lot. She's more focused on diversity. She's more focused on, tax cuts. The same way Trump is also focused on more tax cuts. But if you analyze the two, there are different situations where Trump wants to, tax more in terms of what is coming in from the external side, and then give businesses in the American space some sort of, space. The same way with Harris, all of them want to actually cut tax. All of them have been heavy on no taxes on tips. If you go to America, tips is actually very, very, key in terms of what comes into people's pockets. So they have different, economic policies. But the most important thing is that Wall Street is also watching what will happen.
So who are
tomorrow.
traders betting their monies on, Trump or Harris?
At the moment, per the data that we have, unfortunately, we have Harris on the screen right now, but they're actually betting on Trump.
Wow.
Yes.
Why?
Traders are actually now betting on Trump. But what is interesting is that they are not actually putting real investment behind that.
Okay.
They possibly think that per the data that they have, he has a bigger chance of winning the election. And possibly, just like you said, they've been looking at the polls, and you've seen how, the gap has actually been closed right after that, attempted assassination incident and all of that. The gap has actually closed between Trump and Harris, and that makes the race very, very difficult. But I'm sure they are also looking at the aggregated polls that shows that Trump is actually in the lead by a slight margin, and they are using that to, inform their decision, but they are not really following it with real form of investment.
You and I were talking about the polls, because depending on where you are, the polls vary, and so there's a lot of uncertainty as to who is going to win the election. And talk about polls, Harris is closing the gap in on Trump when it comes to the economy. What does this uncertainty do to the market?
Well, when it comes to opinion polls, for me, I trust more of secondary data than opinion polls, because it's so difficult to predict the human behavior. Sometimes someone will tell you a yes, but it's actually a no. So opinion polls can actually skew towards any angle. But for the market, they already have their own secondary data that they make decision on. And just like, we'll possibly be talking about the Federal Reserves and the federal rates, also very important. Although they act as independent bodies from what will happen in the election, definitely opinion polls are very important. But they actually, take their decision or make their decision based on some secondary data that they have, not necessarily because based on the aggregated polls that are available in the space at the moment.
Well, it's also interesting. We need to point out that right after Election Day, I think a couple of days afterwards, the U.S. Fed will make a decision about interest rates. And so where do we see that going as well?
Very difficult question. I mean, we've been following that one particular rate cut. We followed it for 9 months before the U.S. decided to cut the rate in September. It was promised that we may have at least 2 rate cuts this year, but looking at the current jobs report that came in, the jobs figures that we are seeing in the U.S., I'm not sure that the Fed will actually cut the rate again. I am actually seeing that they are going to maintain it, and the stock market is actually watching this closely and keenly. And just like you said, it is important. They want to use this data to make decisions. But if you look at it, if you interview most of the top investors, they're all saying that, look, we are sitting on our monies. Election, there's not a big probability event. They can't really predict who will win. So what they're doing is that they're sitting on their investment and looking at short-term means to invest some of their equities there. Some of them actually keeping cash reserve. It was around 5%, but now they are deciding to keep about 10%. That tells you that uncertainty around these elections is really high.
How does this all matter for us here in Ghana?
A lot. I mean, you're talking about fuel prices, and I mean the fact that
top of the bulletin.
Yes, I mean prices have actually gone up at the pumps. Why? Because the U.S. is one of the biggest consumers and determinants when it comes to fuel prices because of the petrodollar economy. If Harris is in power or Trump is in power, it actually determines who they decide to trade with in terms of the crude. They actually have a lot of power in terms of what's happening in the Middle East and all of that. So that will determine whether the prices will stay very high or, I mean, low. There's data that shows that we've not actually reached the fair level value this year where, I mean, crude is actually trading between $75 and $78 per barrel. Usually it was around $100 per barrel. So if you are in Ghana and you are watching the U.S. election, your petrol price is very, very important. And the cedi. And the cedi. I mean, you spoke about
this morning that the dollar was weakening because of the uncertainties about who is going to win the elections.
Exactly.
That also has repercussions.
Exactly. I mean, just that the day after the election, you have the Feds coming in to determine where the policy rates will be. The U.S. economy is not done heating up. So the Fed itself is so uncertain about the direction of inflation going into the first quarter of next year. So they will do everything they can to protect the American consumer first before us. If they cut the rate, it will be good for us. But at the moment, because of the uncertainties, definitely I see they maintaining that rate at that point.
And you and the team, you've got a big show coming up Tuesday.
Absolutely,
Wednesday?
Definitely Wednesday, I think from 12 a.m. to 9 a.m., so
America Decides
on Joy News. The whole political desk will be on. Evans himself will be on that show. It's going to be big. We're starting very early, 12 a.m. to 9 a.m. It will be live on Joy News, exactly, and then also on Joy 99.7. A lot of action, it's actually an action-packed show right from that midnight to the morning where we have some surprising items for you. So definitely stick and stay tuned.
We'll be staying up to watch. Thank you so much.
America will decide on Joy News anyway.
Definitely, they will. The election headquarters, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And while we'll still stick with the financial markets, government recorded another marginal oversubscription of treasury bills, but at the expense of rising interest rates. According to auction results from the Bank of Ghana, the government bagged 4.078 billion cedis as against a target of 4.01 billion cedis. Here's more in this report.
All the bids tendered were oversubscribed. About 3.32 billion Ghana cedis, representing 82.97%, came from the 91-day bill. A little over 549.96 million Ghana cedis were offered for the 182-day bill. However, 200.78 million Ghana cedis were tendered for the 364-day bill. The securities will be issued today, November 4, 2024. Meanwhile, interest rates continue to rise on the yield curve. The yield on the 91-day bill went up by 37 basis points to 26.56%. That of the 182-day bill was 27.58%, as against 27.29% the previous week. The rate on the 364-day bill was, however, up by 6 basis points to 28.97%.
Now, 3 firms, including Standard Chartered Bank, are expected to witness increase in their share prices this week. This is due to the outstanding bids above the market's prices. Here from Grace Monayan of DataBank Research.
Last week's trading closed on a positive note, with some stocks reaching their yearly highs due to the release of good 9-month 24 results. The market indices closed stronger, with the Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index advancing by 3.67% weekly, the year-to-date gain of 44.7%, whereas the DataBank Stock Index gained 3.27% weekly, the year-to-date gain of 40.08%. MTN Ghana gained the most after the release of 9-month 24 results and the launch of the 5G network spectrum, while Cowbank gained 2 pesos to close at 28 pesos due to its good 9-month 24 results. New Gold, Ecobank Transnational Incorporated, Standard Chartered Bank, Unilever Ghana and Total Energies all gained to close at their yearly highs. Market turnover surged by 5.7 times weekly to 73.47 million after trading 5.92 million shares over 25 counters. New Gold led trading activities throughout the week and closed as the most traded stock, accounting for 83% of the market turnover. On outlook for this week, we expect the share prices of Standard Chartered Bank, Total Energies and Benz Oil Palm Plantation to gain on increased demand for Standard Chartered Bank and Total Energies and the recent dividend declaration for Benz Oil Palm Plantation. For Joy Business Report, Grace Monayan of DataBank Research.